In today's video, we're going to be reviewing The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1.
Let's get into it. Hey everyone, my name is Chris. This is my brother Jeff. Welcome to Cref. So today we're going to be reviewing the second season and the first episode of The Mandalorian. So before we jump into the full review, I want to let you know that this review has full spoilers. So if you haven't watched the first season, what are you doing here? Pause the video, go check out the first season, come back and join us, okay? But speaking of the first season, right? The first season, I would say, did a lot of things right. Just going into the first season, we were just coming off of what I'd call a disaster of a trilogy with the J.J. Abrams trilogy, right? In my opinion, did a lot of things wrong. And so me as a Star Wars fan, kind of pissed off, kind of wanting to see more from Disney in terms of doing things with Star Wars. And here comes along Jon Favreau to say, hey, listen, I got this. And so he makes the first season. I think it did a lot of things right. What do you think?
It was good. I mean, you had really high production values. You're taking the huge franchise that is Star Wars and you're putting it into a show, a live action show. We've seen cartoons before and all that. We've seen comic books, but to have a really full-fledged live action show is fantastic. While it was entertaining, obviously you had Baby Yoda, who was super adorable. You had, Mando and the Mandalorians, who were just really cool. For the most part, it was pretty vanilla. I think they played it safe. I think they wanted to bring in a mass audience. And so while, it did deliver on certain notes in terms of action, in terms of, heartwarming moments, it still was, again, pretty vanilla and pretty standard fare. It was kind of lacking the layers I was really hoping to see with a full-fledged Star Wars story. And so going into this new season, we were really hoping that, it just brings the layers. It brings deeper stories when it comes to the child, when it comes to Mando himself, when it comes to sort of the overarching themes of the Star Wars universe. And so with this first episode, obviously expectations were high, and we'll get into what we thought about it.
So the episode starts with the Mandalorian and the child kind of walking through what looks like a seedy underbelly of some sort of city. Right, and this is something I always like to see, especially when associated with The Mandalorian, because when I think Mandalorians, I think Jango Fett in Episode 2, right? Kind of exploring, being the bounty hunter. When he's walking through, you kind of see something you've never really seen before in Star Wars, at least I don't remember seeing, which is graffiti. Right. And it's a small thing, really, but I think that when they're adding new things into the universe, it's always a good thing. So from there, they walk into what looks like sort of a fighting ring. Again, kind of a little bit cliche, kind of looked like a boxing ring, which I was like, I don't know why they went with that, but, whatever. It was kind of cool. And basically, he sits down with what looks like a crime boss, trying to find out information about other Mandalorians throughout the universe. And it kind of goes how you'd expect, where they kind of turn on him, and the start of the episode basically turns into what we'd expect for, the show, which is an action scene, which is a really good start to this episode.
Yeah, again, after a long hiatus from the first season, it's nice to see Mando kind of getting back into action. We got some information about what his next destination was, which was good. It sort of summed things up pretty quickly, got things going pretty quickly. You see him doing his thing. And yeah, we were excited that the location that he's directed to is Tatooine, which, again, always just makes us feel good going back to Tatooine, right? Just kind of place where it all started. But this time seeing it from a different angle, rather than the angle of the Skywalkers, we're seeing it from the angle of Mando and the child. And so we were excited to see where that would take us. So they fly to Tatooine, and they meet up with that lady again. I don't know if you guys remember, the lady that took care of the child while Mando was off gallivanting and doing quests in the desert. But they see her again, and she directs them to a small town, a settlement called Mospelgo, which is supposedly where this other Mandalorian is stationed. And so him and the child, they get on their speeder, they go out there, and from there it takes a very sort of Western feel, where he kind of rolls up into town, and all the settlers and settlement people there are kind of looking at him with the stink eye, and it was nice to kind of see that they were kind of calling back to those old Western movies, but and that's kind of the general tone that The Mandalorian has taken in a lot of the episodes. But it was a nice nod to those old movies.
Yeah, definitely. Again, Western vibes, right? Which is kind of what The Mandalorian has been doing best over, especially in the first season. But now, again, with the first episode in this new season, you definitely get more of it. I feel like with the music and the combination of walking to the bar, him being the only one in there, and again, the mention of another Mandalorian was really exciting for me because we haven't seen, especially after the first season, we haven't seen too many Mandalorians, and he's on Tatooine. Is it Boba Fett? Is it somebody else? And so again, I think this was a good direction for the episode to go, especially after a big action scene. Kind of want to slow it down a little bit. The only thing I would say is that I kind of got the sense that, okay, now we're going back into side quest territory where we're getting away from what the child is, where it comes from, all the Force kind of stuff, and going back into, okay, going to a random place and kind of having to save people again. So now the Mandalorian is in this bar, again, very Western vibes, and he asked, hey, listen, where's this other Mandalorian, right? And, again, at this point, I don't know what to expect. We don't know what to expect, who's going to walk in. And you see somebody walk in, and immediately, for those Star Wars fans that have been fans for a long time, we recognize the Boba Fett armor, right? And it's like, oh my God, Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett, right? And again, immediately we could tell that this wasn't Boba Fett because he was a little bit skinnier. He didn't have the full armor on, and there's just something off about it. But even still, just seeing that armor was exciting, right? And so this guy comes in who's called the Marshal, right? And again, we're like, okay, who is this guy? Maybe this is another Mandalorian we've never heard of. And he goes to sit down, and okay, we're all holding our breath. And what does he do? He takes off his helmet. We're like, oh, right? Again, when we were watching it, we audibly gasped. Okay, This is obviously, there's something wrong with this picture, right? And from that point on, the Mandalorian basically says, listen, this is not going to fly. Like, this is not your armor. You're not a Mandalorian. And basically what ensues is a conversation about how this guy got the armor and why he has it.
So right after Mando and the Marshal have this conversation, you can tell they're about to get into it, but then all of a sudden there's this rumbling noise, and you see this huge creature just kind of come through town, kind of wreaking havoc. And the Marshal tells Mando, look, we have this creature that's been bothering us. It's called the Crate Dragon, and I will give you your armor back if you help us take this out. And of course, Mando gets embroiled in the troubles of this small town. And here's the thing. As much as I like seeing these side stories, and I guess maybe that's the essence of what The Mandalorian as a series is going to be, I can't help but want the deeper stuff. I want to see the Force. I want to see Jedi. I want to see all these things. And again, these side stories are entertaining, and I guess the whole series is meant to show these other people in the Star Wars universe. But sometimes it just seems like a little bit of a waste of time. Not that it isn't exciting, but it just seems like, okay, that's great. We saw a lot of this in the first season, but I want to see the real meat.
So the Marshal and the Mandalorian decide to go defeat the Crate Dragon. On the way there, however, they run into Tuscan Raiders. And what ends up happening is the three groups, the Mandalorian, the Marshal, and the Tuscan Raiders, decide to team up to defeat this thing. Right? And automatically I was like, okay, this is taking a direction that I like, because number one, we haven't seen too much of the Tuscan Raiders really getting into it. The last time we really saw them come into play was I believe it was in episode 3 or episode 2 where Anakin just destroys all of them, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of seeing another side to them, kind of humanizing them a little bit more, which I really liked. I also thought it was really funny that the Mandalorian's the only one that can speak Tuscan Raider, so kind of having that miscommunication caused a lot of funny moments, which I thought was great. And finally, I think having all three teams or three groups team up to defeat the Crate Dragon was a really good idea.
So like Chris was saying, it was really cool to see Tuscan Raiders at the actual forefront of a Star Wars story. You learn a little bit more about their culture. At one point, Mando says, oh, Tuscan Raiders always keep their word. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I definitely didn't know that, which was awesome. But again, eventually what happens is that these three groups, Marshal and the Settlers, Mando and the Child, and the Tuscan Raiders, come together to take down this Crate Dragon. And it was really entertaining. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of energy to it. And as these things go, at one point they start losing, and so Mando and the Marshal themselves feel like they have to get more involved, and so there's this really cool moment where the Marshal in his Boba Fett armor and Mando in his armor, they both take off in their jetpacks at the same time, and that was really cool to see. And again, they eventually do bring it down, and overall, it was entertaining, sure, but at this point, again, after the first season, we've seen this before, right? We're used to this, and I can't really say it moved the story forward at all. It didn't really learn anything new. It was just sort of a fun little romp on Tatooine. Yeah, to me, it just didn't add anything. It was just kind of, business as usual.
So to wrap up everything, it kind of goes how you'd expect. The Mandalorian gets the armor from the Marshal, and the Mandalorian and the child kind of ride off in the sunset, except there's a mysterious figure kind of watching them ride in the sunset, and who is it? It's actually Boba Fett, right? I think they were trying to tease us with the armor and saying, oh, okay, we thought it was Boba Fett, it wasn't actually Boba Fett, but then actually they put in Boba Fett.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And I don't know what it is about Disney, but for whatever reason, like in Rogue One, in the Han Solo movie, whatever, I can't remember what the name of it is, they wait till the end to kind of throw in that big Easter egg, even in the end of the last season with the Darksaber, right? They just make you watch till the very end, and they actually put the really cool thing in at the very end. So to me, like, maybe, there were certain parts of the episode that were slower, some were faster, some were good, some were bad, but for me, it all kind of comes together. It's all kind of worth it when you see Boba Fett standing there in that cool kind of black robe, watching over this whole thing happen, and really, I can't wait to see what they do with that.
So here are our final thoughts. Personally, I think it was a great start to the season. Not super in-depth, not in a lot of meat there, but definitely entertaining, definitely a lot of fun. Seeing Boba Fett again was absolutely exhilarating.
Awesome.
It literally, again, smoothed over any problems the episode had, just seeing him standing there. And like Chris said before, I am so pumped to see what they do with him, because they could take this in any direction. So we rate on a scale out of 5, and so I'm going to give my score first and then Chris. And so I think this episode definitely got a solid 4 out of 5.
To me, I think the best parts about this episode were some of the smaller things, not necessarily the big things. For example, when the Marshal was kind of riding his speeder, if you noticed, it was a pod racer engine, right? You had little things like there was R5 in the Tatooine kind of hangar bay. You had Boba Fett, you had the Boba Fett armor, all these little nods to kind of Star Wars. I think that really solidified the episode for me. So I think I tend to agree. I think I'd give the episode a solid 4 out of 5.
So that's our review. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. And let us know in the comments below if you agree with our scores or maybe you think we're way off base. Either way, we want to know your thoughts about this first episode of the second season, whether you think that, hey, this is a step in the right direction, or maybe you think, hey, this is just the same thing we've seen in the first season.
And listen, if you enjoyed this video today, please consider leaving us a like and subscribing to our channel. We're planning to upload a lot more videos around video games, movies, books. So if you guys like that kind of stuff, then please consider joining our community. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, have a good one.
We'll see you on the next one.